What's going on, folks? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide, man. It's the Skeeter Bass Chance Megabass Preview Lake Fork Tournament Bass Fishing. You know how we do it on your Lake Fork Guide. We're going to give you more in-depth and better tips than you will find anywhere else. Like we've done for 10 years. Well, let's see. Is the YouTube channel is not quite 10 years old yet, but it's close, like 8 years. We'll call it eight and a half. It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you. We haven't left you. Without a dope beat deceptive. All right. It's a good time to be at Lake Fork, man. The fishing has been absolutely tremendous. I'm going to get some guide buddies of mine in here tonight. We're going to break it down with several guides and talk about baits. We're going to talk about areas. We're going to talk about how to deal with the weather that's coming, how to deal with the wind that's going to be here on Sunday for the tournament. Break down everything that you guys need to know on how to catch them as good as you possibly can. Give yourself as good a chance to catch them as you possibly can on Sunday for Megabass. It's a huge event coming up. Here's the deal, man. Like, there's all kinds of content out there these days. All kinds. And there's some really good stuff out there. Here's one thing I'm proud of. There ain't one person that's ever made a piece of content that is more informative than any of the instructional stuff that we do here. We don't hold anything back. What I will say, we don't tell you what ramp we're launching at. We offer an app where you can see the waypoints where we're fishing. We don't tell you, hey, go throw a swim bait, or hey, go throw a spinner bait or a Texas rig. We actually tell you exactly how we present those baits and what areas we present them in. It's why I've always been so proud of how we've done things. I've strived to do it from the beginning. I feel like we've done a really good job of it. And I'm so proud to say that we give you more in-depth and better and more current information than you can find possibly anywhere else. And from our app, our information on our app's better than every other app. And the information we share on video is more in-depth and more helpful than any other video you're going to find anywhere on planet Earth. That being said, enough bragging on me and my boys here. Let's bring one of them in that helps me do it. Money Mike.
I like that. Money Mike. I like that.
Listen, you're a fishing guide. I know it's a lie when I call you Money Mike.
That pretty. Yeah. Hey, listening to you. Yeah, it's pretty much spot on. I have not seen anybody anywhere in my entire fishing career just spill it like we do. I've seen a lot of good teachings, and I'm not, trying to downgrade anybody or over upgrade us, but there's no doubt. I think that a lot of people have said to me, dude, why do you spill it? I mean, wow, you really, you give the goods right as they get them, and I'm telling you, I have faith in you're supposed to break your bread and share. And I've been doing this a long time now, and I promise you, it's in everything we do in our life. I'm not going to start preaching to anybody because I'm far from being a preacher, but I have seen in my life with fishing specifically, the more that I go ahead and give, the more I accidentally run into whatever you call it. A dog finds a bone. I find the bone more often because I think God wants me to share it. So I also believe that it's the hunter, not the arrow. So a lot of times, even though we're sharing the goods, doesn't mean everybody can just go out there and do it. And so it's still teaching. It's telling the truth, which is not typical in the fishing industry. But anyways, hey, good to be here. That's my intro. That's my intro to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's here's the deal. I've said this, I think, one time before, and I don't talk about it a lot on camera because I'm very weary of guys that have the Christian fish on their business card. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I don't want to be that guy.
Nope.
But I will say this. When I started doing this channel and started all the Your Lake Fork Guide stuff, I believe I'm not a preacher either, but I believe you can, for a guy that, me, I like to keep everything real simple. And when we talk fishing, I talk about keeping it simple. I like to keep things simple. I don't like to be trying to think too much. For all my life of having read the Bible and been in church since I was a little kid, off and on, all that teaches me in the end boils down to a really simple principle. And it's to love God and love others and serve God and serve others above yourself.
There you go.
And that's basically what most of the stuff you get taught in that book tells you. It's all boils down to that. So
above yourself, yes, sir.
When I started this business, I really had that in my mind. Of, look, how do I want to build this? Here's the deal. I got to serve others, man. I got to serve others, brother. And if you think about the slogan I've always put on there, hey, help each other catch more and bigger fish and love our fellow man. It literally boils down to what I interpret the Bible as. So the success that I had, like I didn't become arguably the busiest guide on Lake Fork in 6 months after I started making videos because I was a better fisherman than everybody all of a sudden. That's not why it happened. It happened because I was doing things the way I feel like that I'm supposed to, according to the ultimate book. So it is what it is, man. You know, people can look at that how they want to, take it for what you want. But when you serve others above yourself, it usually pays off in a big, big way. So that being said, we got another faithful fishing guy waiting in the studio room here. Let's bring him on in.
Speaking of serve, why don't you just serve? I need a sandwich and a drink.
Yeah. Yeah. You need a sandwich and a drink? I'm usually the one to look when it comes to any type of food. I'm usually a good candidate to offer it up because there's always plenty around me. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Hey, I do want to, before we get started, I want to give a real quick off-topic shout-out to the Van Vandals, the high school varsity baseball team. Played a great game last night against Athens. They ended up winning the game 8-4. And here's what I want to give them a shout-out because they're getting hammered a little bit today on social media. The game had some chippy moments, you might say. There was, these are all 17-year-old kids for the most part, 16, 17, 18. A couple of them might be 18. Most of them are 16 and 17-year-old kids. And it was a tight game. Athens started out with a 3-0 lead. Van come back and took a 4-3 lead. It was one of those games. And these are 17-year-old young men who are trying to figure out who they are in the world. And they're out there playing as hard as they can. The Van kids, one thing I'm proud of, they do it the way you're supposed to. They play hard, man. They give it all. And they're doing that, and they're getting fired up. And one of our kids said something going to first base, and I don't know what he said. I didn't hear it. Another fans on our side heard it. And then one of the Athens parents started screaming and yelling about it. The Athens parents ended up getting kicked out because he kept repeating an obscenity that he felt like our player said. All that is baseball, and it's all good. Here's the deal. Today on social media, we got an Athens parent or teacher or somebody that is absolutely trying to trash the Van kids from Van, Texas that play baseball. And the Van school as itself, like they're getting like this lady's trying to talk bad about them. And I just want to give the Van kids a shout out and say, I'm super proud of the way y'all play. And every coach that I've ever known may not say this publicly, but they'll all agree with me. They would much rather have kids that they have to make run laps around the ball field because they said something they shouldn't have because they were fighting back in a game versus a kid that backs down from the fight. They'd all rather have you be that way. I promise you they would. And those Van kids are the epitome of we'll get in here and mix it up with you. And I love it, and I'm proud of them. And by the way, from that lady from Athens that made that post today, if you're an adult and you're going to social media talking bad about a 17-year-old kid, I don't care what that 17-year-old did. If you're an adult talking bad about a 17-year-old kid on Facebook, you are the problem, ma'am. I'm just going to say that and leave it at that.
Fact.
So,
yeah.
And I've got there's a football coach in here for Rains High School that says absolutely. So I'm not off base there. All right, guys, Bass Champs is coming up. Not Bass Champs, but Megabass, which is hosted by Bass Champs. Fantastic tournament. The lake is in fantastic shape. The only problem we got this weekend, these guys are going to deal with some weather issues. It's going to be colder on Sunday. The water is going to kind of maybe cold trend a little bit. Here's the good part. I think the water's warm enough. It shouldn't hit them too hard on this cold trend as far as like, I had a buddy call me and ask me today, will this make the spawning bass get off their beds? No, absolutely not. It may make them a little harder to catch, but they won't leave their beds. And we're going to get into everything. So I guess first thing I want to do tonight is go round table. Mike, we'll start with you. Give me top 3 or 4. Let's just hold all the how to fish them and all that aside for later. Just give me your top 3 or 4 baits. What do we need to have tied on the deck on Sunday?
On Sunday, due to the conditions that are being proposed, it looks like we will get hit with rain. So on my deck, I'm going to have a frog. I'm going to have a black buzz bait with a gold blade and a large gold blade. And I'm probably going to have swim jig. That swim jig is most likely going to be in the chartreuse and white. I usually, again, I'll bed fish with my swim jigs, but we'll talk about that later. I can cover a lot of water with those 3 baits, though.
You're going to have something rigged up for bed, a Texas rig for bed fishing as well? Or
And I'll try that swim jig. A lot of times my swim jig will be the 1-2 punch that I can do everything with. So there's 3 baits, a frog, a buzz bait, and a swim jig, and I'm covering water.
Makes sense. Okay. David, give me 3 or 4 baits from you.
Well, I mean, my philosophy is going to be slightly different. I'm going to cater to these people this weekend that are going to be going after the unders, the big unders. in this thing. Those I call stage walkers, and the strategy is going to be slightly different. I mean, number one, you can catch a big $15,000 fish off a bed. All right, just about guaranteed. And I mean, there's going to be a lot of bucks on beds. The females may pull out due to this weather, this inclement weather. The males are going to hang around up there. And so when we go for those bed fish, a lot of time I've been catching a lot of these fish with a little dipper. And you know, I mean,
basically little swim bait. For those that don't know,
little swim bait,
a 3.5-inch swim bait,
3.5-inch swim bait, dye the tail red, and then flip it up in there on those beds. I mean, we'll start with that. We'll get them riled up, and then once we get them riled up, we may throw a natural bait in there, like a baby brush hog, or you know, in a watermelon red, or either. I even caught some this week on watermelon orange off the beds, as far as that goes. And then I'll have a wacky Cinco tied on also. And you keep rotating through these baits on those beds. And last, I'll have a drop shot tied on. And I mean, a lot of times those things will bite the drop shot before they'll bite anything. And that's a strange thing to throw into a bed, but let me tell you what, it works. And then if that bed fishing, if you can't track down, if you happen to be in a creek or be in the back of a cove or something like that, with the way this weather's going to transition going into Sunday, I'd back out off the bank, get closer to the ditch. If there's a ditch winding through this back of this pocket, and throw that wacky Cinco, throw a drop shot, throw it. I think McFarland named this chicken shit rig out there in that on the edges of those ditches in 3 to 6, 7 foot of water. And I think that's going to be the home run play of the whole tournament.
Yeah. And for anybody that doesn't know, the chicken shit rig is a finesse Carolina rig. It's a small Carolina rig.
That's right.
Little shorter leader, small weight.
You did name that, didn't you, Mike?
Yeah, it did. It actually generated from a split shot rig in Arizona. And here's the thing, like in Arizona or even California, sometimes you're fishing in places where they're 2 or 3 pound bass. So, you know, if you catch a 5, that's a giant. So you do use light line, and to crimp a split shot on the line, it's not that big deal that it's damaging the line. So what? The 2 pounders ain't going to break it. But you don't do that stuff on fork. And so I decided that I would create that basically finesse Carolina rig with a double bobber stopper, slide it around, whatnot, however you want to make it. And I just called it chicken shit rig. You can do whatever you want with it.
Let me tell you a little story here.
Hold on, Mike. I want to add something to that. Also, back in the day when we were crimping it, we were using 12 or 15 pound monofilament that was thicker and more abrasion resistant. And fluorocarbon, when you're throwing the 12 pound fluorocarbon, it's a lot like it can get more brittle when you crimp it like that.
Yes.
So
well, and to go ahead,
modified, fluorocarbon is better, less stretch. It's a better line, but if you crimp it, it'll damage it more. So you can't do that. So
and you can't adjust it, and you can't adjust it then either. So if you wanted to make it, like I found in Texas, sometimes I have it literally 3 inches. Sometimes I'll have it be 18 inches. And if you adjust that with a split shot, sliding it up and down, you're just damaging your line too.
Same thing. I use Magnum.
David, your 3 baits were a drop shot, a wacky, and a little dipper. Was that right?
Yes.
Okay. Want to make sure we got that clear and obvious. Let me throw 3 out there. And I just want to say this about it. So the 2 things that Mike and David, like David's pretty finessey. I mean, he's got the little dipper, but he's got 2 finesse baits with wacky and drop shot. Mike had all 3 reactionary. Here's the thing. When conditions get tougher, you got to go reactionary, you got to go finesse. You go one way or the other and get out of the middle. And you're seeing that from these guys that have a ton of experience here. And I think that the cold morning, and it's going to stay kind of cold. It's going to, like the high's like 53 or something like that on Sunday. I think that's going to me, I think you can get reactions on top. And the thing that Mike's talking about, you can get a big one. For me, I don't really know that I'm going to want to go with the top water for me. I'm going to really try to bed fish if I can see them. And for that, it's a Texas rig compact creature bait. I'm going to do my thing with the bead. Everybody knows that, 3/8 ounce weight, a bead, and some type of little compact crawl bait. Mike, thanks for bailing me out the other day when I was running out. Appreciate that. So that's going to be my number 1. The little swim baits, I haven't really been catching a lot of fish on them, but it's like they have to work. Like it has to be happening. David's catching some on them. I'm not, but like the lake is set up so good for those little swim baits that I've got to keep that tied on. So I'm going to go anywhere from a 3.5 to a 5-inch swim bait of your choice. And man, for my 3rd bait, like Mike, I want to follow your suit. Like, me, I want to power fish. I want to go buzz bait, spook, big yellow magic, something like that. I just can't, man. I got to go wacky worm, and I'm talking about all the way finesse, wacky rig trick worm, half a nail weight in the head, and I'm going to have something with some red flake in it for sure on all my plastics.
Yeah. Let me tell you a quick story here.
And
for all your listeners out there, that last year in this in particular tournament, I had found an under that I knew, because I've been fishing these stringer tournaments for 15, 18 years here on this lake. Okay. And I knew this bass was under 16 inches and I knew it was big. All right. So I had a client, it was a man and a woman. And I said, you were going to win $15,000 with this fish. All right. And I showed him where it was. All right. Brought him right to the spot. And I showed him they didn't have power poles on their boat. So I showed him let me see, is this apropos? The hillbilly power pole rig with going to the store and getting a dowel rod, a closet rod, sharpen the end of it, put a rope on your cleat, and then punch it down into the mud, right there whenever you ease up with a trolling motor on this fish. And I said, this will hold you right there while you catch this fish. So everything was fine. Showed him where it was. Showed him 3 other fish also that were going to be money fish also. Tournament goes off, and I was interested to see, and I didn't see the guy's name in the top 7 places. And I thought, what the? So I called the guy at about 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I talked to him. He says, oh, man, we caught a bunch of slot fish that day, and da-da-da, but we didn't get any. I said, did you went to that fish back there? I showed you that big fish. And he said, no, we never went back there. We never went to it. And I said, you did what? And I said, you didn't go to it. So the next day on a guide trip, Cody catches that fish. All right. He calls me up, man, there was a big under in such place. And I said, yeah, I know where it is. And I put a guy on it yesterday. He didn't fish it. So that was on Monday. The next day I bring a client there. That fish was still there. And this time the female was there, and he flips up there. I've got him flipping a little white jig. He flips it up there. He catches this under 282, 15 3/4 inches long. All right. And then I'm holding this fish. I'm going to put it in the live well. Next thing you know, he's hollering, get the net, get the net, get the net. He catches the female, 8.5. Moral of the story is, when you know there's a $15,000 fish there, why did you not go to it?
Probably should have went and visited that one, I'm guessing.
Yeah, never leave a fish to find a fish.
May's got off the water late. He's not on with us tonight, but he dropped a comment on here of his 3 baits. He's got the Finesse Carolina rig with a fluke. That's a good one. Wacky worm as well. That's a popular one tonight. Texas rig Cinco, and he gave us 4 baits and a swim jig. So some commonalities there you're seeing with the wacky worm, swim jig, the Texas rig stuff. So there's some basics that you need to definitely have those tied on. Those are kind of seem to be a trending deal amongst all 4 of us. So appreciate Cody for adding that in there. All right, let's talk about this.
So real quick, go ahead, but real quick, since I didn't talk much about it, I just kind of threw my 3 real fast. I want to just elaborate on why I'm strictly reaction. Several factors, just year after year after year, seeing these conditions, and I don't want to win one of the $15,000 hours. I want to win the whole damn thing.
Yeah, you
so which would win 1 hour and a boat, and I'm literally being batter number 4 in the lineup. I'm going to swing for 1 blow up, and I feel under the conditions, timing this time of year, you got a lot of females. The odds, I play odds, and the odds are really high that if you're that guy. And mark my words, that guy in the thing that wins this whole thing is going to be on a frog or a buzzbait, and he never put it down or just got lucky. But that bait is going to be the one that giant female potentially is vulnerable on. I don't see a bedfish being seen if we flood. If we're 2 foot over pool, like they're saying, 10, 12 inches of rain. 10 or 12 inches of rain to me is a buzzbait frog, but I got to die with it. That's it.
My experience. Hold on.
You know what might would work too, Mike. And our favorite flat that we've been on lately is a big spook.
Yeah.
Well,
that flat is so flat, and you got that wide area, and you can make long casts and cover it all. Like that big spook might get that big bite out there too.
I've seen
big
this
bite. Absolutely.
Now wait a minute. Now let's let between the 3 of us, let's talk about this for a second. I am Mr. Break Things Down into the umph level. This temperature is going to drop substantially. That water temperature is going to drop. Florida strain bass, and I've seen it too many times in the past. Y'all may see it differently, but if this temp drops 6, 7, 8, 9 degrees in certain spots, especially shallow spots, Florida strain bass absolutely will clam up. I mean, you just can't get them to bite if overnight water temps drop that much.
I don't think the temps are going to drop that much, David. I really don't. I mean, you're talking about lows in the 40s and highs in the 50s and the water temps in the 60s. Like, I don't think you're going to get more than a 4 or 5 degree drop at most. And here's what I want to say. When we're talking about, when Mike's talking about a buzzbait and a frog, you're talking about water rising. Spawning fish are already shallow. The ones that aren't locked on a bed or with the water rising are going to get more shallow. And now you're talking about a reaction bait, an ultimate reaction bait that's within 12 inches of their head. Right. So whether they are active or not, even if the cold makes them inactive, man, the odds to get if you think about it in the winter when they cold trend and they're deeper, if you want to get a reaction bite, you throw something you rip out of grass, a chatterbait, a trapping, or a jerk bait, right? Where it's, well, now you got this loud buzz bait or a frog that's going, doing all that, and it's 12 inches from their face. You're just throwing that thing, and if you're going to go into that, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're going to go into that thing throwing the buzz bait, the frog, you're not going out there to get a lot of bites. You're going out there to get one big one to react, and you're going to throw it over their heads all day, 12 inches from their face, and make one react.
Well, and I'm thinking water risen. I'm thinking if the weatherman's right, 10 inches of rain, whatever. The frog's going in the crap. The buzzbait's going to be right on the line of all my junk because you're obviously not going to throw a buzzbait up in buckbrush or in pin, grass or anything. So my buzzbait's going to be just for that line, that outside edge of things. Yeah. And my swim jig and my frog's going to go as far in it as I can get it.
David, I only went there on that, so hard on that because, man, I have had some haymaker days on catching not a lot of fish, but catching 6 or 7 fish and having really big bag, best 5. When I go really, really reactive on days that are supposed to be really tough.
Yeah, it's sometimes I learned that too, that sometimes they're not going to eat. They're not in the mood to eat. So going slow is presenting them something they got to eat, or you got to put it right on their nose. The other is just a reaction. And when you got a spawning fish, man, big females just sometimes react. Look at the males. You can work a bed for 15 minutes and he doesn't give a dang. And then all of a sudden he changes every tune in the next 2 minutes you caught him. The same thing. Females can be sitting there behind a stump and not care for 30 minutes. And all of a sudden the next chatterbait that comes by says, that's it. I'm done. She saw 20 chatterbaits and 10 boats. And then finally, the old man.
Tournaments on this lake, stringer tournaments for a long, long time. And I just recently, it was last year, I had a spot where the water temp was 67. The next morning we come in there. That was on the practice day. The next morning, cold front had come in at 4:00 in the afternoon. Cold front blew in. The next morning, the wind's blowing 30 out of the north. We're sitting on a spot. The water temp dropped 8 degrees in 15 hours. Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. That's not what's going to happen this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big.
I'm telling you,
it's not that big.
I got to start this week. I was in a spot this week that the water was 69 degrees. When we got back in there the next day, which was, what day was it? It was Monday. It was Tuesday. We go in there, the water's 63. So we fished around, got a bite or two, nothing serious. Came back there later on. At the end of the day, that spot went from 63 to 74.
It's amazing. You know what's really, and David, you're so spot on with these Floridas. Nobody knows the tournament size, the cash and checks, what you're talking about. No one knows it better than you. And you know what's weird for me, though, is you can be 57 warm to 62, the fish bite. When we're under, those cold temps, we're looking for 60. We just find 60, say back in February, the end of February, man, then you find biting fish. Well, now we got constant 60. We've got to find 67 to find warming. It's what it is. It's that fall. It's the fall. And I talk about the Texas two-step. They don't like that cool trend. And I would say, regular bass on the West Coast will take 5 to 7 degree fall overnight, and it won't hurt them as much. Where these Florida strain, if you have 5 to 7 degree swing, you're trouble. You're in trouble here. 2 degrees, and these fish get finicky.
Yeah, the trend definitely matters more than the number. I want to let all the viewers know right now, as we go along in this, we are going to break things down in depth. We're going to talk about exactly the type of areas you need to be in, where we're seeing the most fish, We're going to get into all of that as the evening goes on. And we're going to go into how to fish some of these techniques, some little top secret guide tricks and things like that. Before we go any further, I want to give a couple plugs. One is going to be Man Fish Life. We talk about it a lot on here. We're all part of it. It's a fantastic thing. The Lake Fork package, the general Lake Fork package, and the Your Lake Fork Guide Pro Tips package just got updated. And I'm telling you right now, it's as good as it gets. The information on there is going to put you around fish as good as anything you'll ever find on any lake anywhere. And when you're talking about that on Lake Fork during spawn, you're going to be around double-digit class fish. They're around every one of those waypoints for sure right now. Mike, I want to give Mike a big shout-out because Mike is doing one of the most interesting and what I think is probably the best educational opportunity maybe ever in the history of bass fishing. Mike is logging all of his fish over 6 pounds. He's putting a waypoint, the date it was caught, what bait it was caught on, and the waypoints on the spot where the fish was caught. So you can actually go in there right now and see what he's caught so far in the last few weeks, month, whatever time frame he's covered. And as we go forward, you can study that week after week, month after month, and really see where are we getting these big bites at exactly. I don't think there's ever been a tool better than that for learning and understanding big fish behaviors on a body of water that's as special as Lake Fork. David, you got your Fish Life app going as well. I know you put some updates on there lately. So David's is on. It's David Ozio's tournament tips or something like that, right? What's yours called?
And yes, David Ozio fishing tips. What I do is I put more spots on there for unders where we're catching bigger unders lately. And where you guys are going after the big ones, and y'all post all these big fish. A lot of the people who call me, they're not interested in the big fish. They want to get on these stage walkers and these places where we're catching a lot of unders. And I posted some spots on there recently where we recently have been catching them. Now this week for me was a bigger struggle for a lot of reasons. Man, I had just an enormous amount of mechanical issues this week in the past 5-6 days. And I mean, this has been somewhat of a struggle. I couldn't sight fish at all because my trim went out on the motor and it couldn't raise it up. And so we could not get shallow at all. And then the trolling motor, the steering, the whole block head on the trolling motor went out 2 days ago. And so we were stuck. The clients that I had were great and we hacked our way through it, but I took care of them and I took care of these other groups just because we struggled a little bit because we just couldn't do what we needed to do.
Yeah. Your equipment limited you. Yeah. David, you've got actually so you're experiencing some challenges with some repair costs right now. I know. And you're wanting to run a trip special to try and promote and book some extra trips. Tell me about that.
Let me tell you something, guys. I mean, I've lived this last week. You might as well say I was in and out of hell. I mean, I had 5 things. I had 5 things break down this week, all at one time. The relay on my Atlas jack plate went out, and then the trim goes out, and then the trolling motor goes out. I'm going across a super rough Bodark lake and hit a wave sideways enough to snap the bracket on my active target in the front, and it almost came off. And then all this driving over to Bodark, the engine on my Yukon blows up.
That's crazy.
And so all this happened inside a week. And so now I am without a tow vehicle. So I talked to Billy about this earlier tonight, and I've got a huge bill that I'm going to have to pay to put a new engine in there. And so usually in around November, I run a 3-trip special called the 3-trip promotion, and only sell 5 of them. And it's for 3 trips for $1,200. And I usually fill it within a day. Most every year it goes off like that. I'm in a position now where I'm going to have to do it again in order to put down a deposit on this big bill that I'm going to have when this new engine goes in there. So if somebody's interested in doing that, and you can use those trips anytime you want to use them, you can. There's no let's say stop on it anywhere. You can use them next year, year after. You can use them all 3 at once. It don't matter what it is. There's no limitation to it. And you can contact me or text me at 409-782-4269. And if you want to take advantage of that, that would greatly help me out to get back on the water.
So you're doing 3 trips for $1,200. So that's $400 for full day trips. So that's a 33% discount on the normal rates.
So
that's incredible.
That'll help us both out, is what that's going to help. But this tag for getting a new engine put in there and all the stuff is huge.
Oh, I know it is, brother. I know. And we feel for you. I guarantee you, we feel for you. You've had a bad run for sure. So
sometimes in this business, it feels like if you didn't have bad luck, you have no luck.
Well,
But
you know what? I see it all uphill. I mean, I see the uphill's over. I think everything's in cruise mode from this point forward.
Hey, Mike,
listen, I lost both axles on a trailer with my Lucas oil boat and stuff. So believe me, I know. And the cool thing I know about you is you with your smile on your face, you'll get through it. It sucks, but you'll get through it.
The Lord will help me get through. That's just the way I live.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's a lot, though. That is a lot.
Yeah, I will say this about it, Mike. David's had as many things happen in a week that I've ever heard anybody. It's been bad, bro.
In a week. Bad. How is it that all happened in 1 week? That's insane.
Hey, but you know what? At least if it was, I would rather it all happen in a week than if it kept happening like once for 6 weeks. I mean, then you'd be, you know what I mean? You'd be pulling your hair if it was one thing every week for 5 weeks. You just got it all done. That was what you're like, you know what?
I had some great clients that understood the situation as hard as we tried to get around it, but I actually had something similar happen last year in the early part of June with Troll Motor. So, that's just part of the game.
It's a rough time of year to have it too, because we just don't have time. You can't cut, for every day you lose, it's gone.
Yeah. So that's where we're headed. So
we got a question I want to answer real quick. This will be a quick, short answer. Would you throw a reaction bait over the top of the ditch in 3 to 7 feet of water? Well, if you're gonna do that, what you need to do is you need to go put your live scope on if you got it, and you need to throw a jerk bait. Like if you're wanting to catch some fish that are either pulling out or pulling in a drain that's kind of around the spawning areas and runs through them, I think you could slow down and do the drop shot deal for sure, like David was talking about. But you could also, if you want to go reactionary on that, go jerk bait and go over the top. If there's any grass in there, throw one that'll get over the top. If one's going a little too deep, you need to get it higher. Put bigger monofilament line on there. It'll make the jerk bait ride higher in the water column. You'll be good to go. So that's the answer to that. Now I want to get into with you guys the areas, and I want to go first on this because I've got something I've kind of been paid real close. David, I'm not normally a detailed guy like you, but I've got detailed on this one little deal right here. The areas the fish are in. Typically, the kind of book thinking, the book of bass fishing thinking is bass spawn in the upper regions of the lake first, and then they start spawning in the middle, and then they start spawning in the south. I want to go a little further into that because it's kind of like that, but not quite. What I'm seeing is there are segments of every creek arm that these fish are spawning in. And they've been spawning heavily in the very back corners, like as far back in the creek arm as you can go. And you can even break that down into smaller pockets, like smaller pockets that are down on the south end by the main lake. Go to the back corner, you'll find some. Now we've started to get kind of the middle of the creek arm and the middle pocket. This new moon has definitely put some new fish on beds this week. We got a new moon Friday. They pulled in, even starting Monday. I told this Mike Monday, I'm like, dude, I'm seeing some pairs. I'm seeing some new females, some new pairs Monday and Tuesday. So that tells me the new moon wave is usually never as big as the full moon, but that new moon wave had started pairing up. And I found most of those new females anywhere where I have been seeing a lot of bedfish in the very back come out a little bit, get on the sides on the bank, and you will see more new ones on the side, like kind of in the middle area on the side. So any little area that you've seen, any cove that you've seen bedfish in, just understand there's been a lot in the back. There's not quite as much now, and they're more out towards the middle of it on the sides. And I think that's going to help you guys eliminate a lot of water real fast. So, let's talk about Northwest Bay. Everybody knows Northwest Bay, right? And I want to bring this one up because this is not on the northern end of the lake. It's about as far on the south end of the lake as you can get. But Northwest Bay is the one by the golf course over there. We don't need to talk about that golf course. I got PTSD from that golf course. Anyway. Yeah. That was a bad day there. Anyways, in Northwest Bay, they've been spawning in the very back corners, like in the very back corners. And now, and if you know Northwest Bay, it's kind of two back corners back there. They've been spawning back there. Now you can pull up to the next corner, like the next little corner kickoff cove, and the sides of kind of the middle of Northwest Bay, and you'll start seeing some fresh fish. It's not quite as many spawners as were in the back a week ago, but it's fresh ones that are easier to catch. And there's a lot more females involved. If you're looking for a female, obviously, you won't catch it over. You got to find a female. So I wanted to go real detailed on that, on areas. It can be a Birch Creek and all the pockets in Birch Creek. But check the back corners, see what's left there. Anything that doesn't suit you, come on out to the middle of those coves in Birch Creek or Dale. Go all the way back to Dale, check it. Don't like it, come out to the kind of just in front of that, halfway back to the middle in Dale. Same thing in No Name, same way. The back corner's not as good now as the corners out in kind of around the main pond dam area. Those are better now. So, and you can repeat this literally all over the lake, whether it's Glade, Long Branch, it don't matter. The whole lake's patterning like this right now from what I found. So
if we get 5 inches of rain, a lot of this could be washed out.
That it could be, but then you got to do kind of what we were talking about. If the water comes up, it gets muddy, the fish are going to get even tighter. The ones that aren't locked on beds will get even tighter, so the fresh ones will get tight to the bank, get in the junk, and that's where the wacky Cinco can be fished there. The swim bait, the swim jig can be fished there. The frog can be fished there if you get in that situation. If the water really dirties up and starts rising some. I don't know that we're going to get it real dirty, guys. Here's the deal. There's enough grass in the lake. There's going to be some dirty water, but there's going to be some water that stays clean because the grass is going to stop the muddy water from flowing in.
Yeah, a weightless fluke is also, if that water rises 3 inches or 4 inches, comes up like that, a lot of this bank vegetation is going to be slightly under the water. That could be a super deadly bait.
David, do you have any kind of
David.
tips on an area? Like what type of area should we be going to? Do you have anything on that?
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. What you're talking about in the backs of those creeks, midway, even halfway back. I've seen them like you're talking about, halfway back to the corners, and I've seen them, as far as that goes. And in the farthest back in some of these places, I was fishing in a spot here just the other day where I really couldn't get where I wanted to get, and there was another guide in the same area, and they were catching them, and that's what they were using. They were throwing the exact same thing. We had a fluke tied on. We had these baits tied on. But if this water rises just a little bit, oh my gosh, that's going to be even better, especially where that junk is so thick. That water gets over it. These fish are just, that's just going to be an insanely great bait for this weekend.
Mike, talk to me about the areas. What are you thinking?
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit to just teach what I've even learned myself and seen over this past 4 weeks, and then I'm going to talk about some suggestions of what I'm going to do for this tournament. Number one, what I noticed the first time is Billy spot on with the fish spawning in the north, in the midsection, in the south. We always see that. That is core temperature related, meaning the main core of the body. This year, I've noticed that a lot of the backwaters and or ponds or anything that's junctured and away from core body is like a backwater swimming pool. It can be a pond, for example. You go up inside Little Caney and you get behind one of those pond dams, and now you have an alligator backwater, whatever you want to call it. It's disconnected from the core temperatures, and it's warmed up first. So those fish have already done some spawning, and potentially those first areas that I was catching spawning fish on 3 weeks ago should have some post-spawn fish. So flooding high waters, I'm thinking buzzbait frog. In those waters, I have high chance of, yes, catching post-spawn fish, but I need an over for this thing to win it. Now, the new fish the fresh fish are going to be the ones that are in the mid-range, just like Billy was talking about. Some of those smaller main lake pockets, the main lake's almost ready. Some of those more south spots that are definitely main core temperatures, you're going to see those waves coming in with this next moon and even the following moon. You'll see those fish spawn in May a little bit too. I think this year being behind. But I would, for the sake of just teaching, next year in February, I know I'm going to be looking for those. It's interesting. Some of those sheltered backwaters too, they don't have any deep water near them. Like it could be a huge bay, but it's only 8 feet deep across the whole entire thing. So you've got, I don't know, say 800 surface acres of water. That's just a tiny little pond. And man, that was unbelievable how many fish went like that scattered throughout the whole lake. So you've got a big wave. It's a big enough wave for me and my brain to target that high water type fishing. One big bite wins the hour and the boat. But I think honestly, and not just blowing smoke, if your odds to just win an hour, you got to make a decision. And that would be my best thing. If you want to do what I'm doing, you're committing to it. You can't bounce, can't change your mind halfway through it. David's way is most definitely, if you commit to David's way, I would expect you're going to run into an under that'll win you an hour or top check in those hours. Me, you could strike out. But if you do hit the well with what I'm throwing, I just think that
home run hitters strike out the most, brother.
That's it. And I like to be that guy. I like to be that guy. I learned it years ago. And it's like batter number 4. If he steps up to the plate and he's nervous and he tells his team, you know what, I think I'll just hit the ball this time. The team tells him, no, swing. And he says, but I might strike out. And they say, yeah, but you might knock the shit out of the ball. And I'm that guy. I want to swing. If I do, you're going to see me walk on the stage and I got a boat for sale and 15 grand.
Well, I'm going to tell you too, on this drag trip the other day, we did exactly what we're talking about. And I was in this area with a lot of great vegetation, but we weren't getting the bites. And so I knew where the ditch was, and I pulled back out to the ditch, and we're throwing in and around the ditch, and we did not get the bites that I thought we would. So you can get that curveball thrown at you. Even when you think you've got it pegged, that this is where they should be. If they're not over there, they got to be right here. And this place has a zillion fish in it. And so there's times when, man, it makes you want to scratch your head. And well, that in particular today, I was on the head scratch.
Here's another thing that too high water on fork screws us all up, and we do not realize until how far in this junk these fish go. I just watched that girl, Christine Kramer, whatever her name is, with his kayak, and she was like, even herself saying, oh my gosh, you guys, literally pushing her kayak through the buckbrush, 40 yards back into no man's land. There ain't a foot of water 100 yards from her, and she's catching 4 or 5 pound males all the way. And that's Florida bass.
And that's Christine Fisher is her name.
Fisher, that's it, Fisher. And so when we get this high water, I think that's another reason these fish disappear for that short amount of time on us. As long as that water stays up, they're in it. I remember, David, you were talking about the fluke. I remember, guys, I didn't do it, but I remember maybe you were doing it. I remember when the high water was 2 foot over pool last year, and the fluke, man, was for the unders and the tournament weekend guys, that was devastating bait to catch fish.
It puts the bank vegetation at the exact perfect depth where those fish are setting mid-level in that vegetation, and it's an easy sight to see where they can just pop up and grab it.
Yeah, first, I'm not the utmost expert on female anglers, but that lady you mentioned, Christine Fisher, probably is the best female angler on earth. Bass fishing angler. She's probably the best female bass fisherman on earth right now. Like, probably is. She's really legit.
She's better than most guys I know.
Yeah, for sure. Second is on the fluke deal. I may lose a friend over saying this out loud, but I'm not even gonna call his name because I don't want to give away too much. But one of the very best tournament anglers on Lake Fork since I've been here, and he's won many an Angler of the Year. He's won many all the weekend series that we have out here, the JCs, and what are the other ones we have? The weekend series we have out here, David. I'm having a brain fart.
There was there was Bud Light, there was Bass and Bucks, there's Media Bass.
Yeah, Media is the other one I say. So like Media and JC Outdoor, like this guy's won a bunch of stuff in those over the years. And dude, I'm gonna tell you, I talked with him a lot. We've shared a lot of information over the years. He is absolute, he makes a lot of money in the springtime, especially on a fluke. And I'm not gonna give away his tricks of how he fishes them because those are his to share, not mine to share. He's got a couple tricks on how he fishes them. But yeah, the weightless fluke is accounted for a bunch of tournament winnings that I personally know of on Lake Fork over the years. Did
you check Cody's posts in there? He said something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got to get to this. So Cody Mays wants to donate a trip to auction off, and the proceeds are going to go to Ozio to the Get Back in Business.
No way.
So here we go. So listen, we've done auctions on live before on Facebook. I don't know that I really want to try to do that tonight because we got so much information to get out. But I will say this. If you guys want to start putting your bids in the comments, we'll take them. I'll get the information to Cody and we'll work it out. If you want to bid on a trip with Cody Mays, we're going to start the minimum bid for a full day trip with Cody Mays. Minimum bid is going to be, let's go $400 to start it. So minimum bid will be $400. That again is a 33% discount. So let's try to start it at $400. See how it goes.
No
bidding on a trip. Hey, fishing community takes care of their own, and I'm telling you, David comes on here and tries to help us all he can. And
what am I do with you?
David is he's well deserving of some help, and I know the fishing community can do it. I've seen it happen before. So let's show David how much we love and appreciate him. And just trust me, guys, it's needed right now. I know, and David won't go into it in detail. I know he won't, but it's needed right now. My man's been in a bad spot, and we need to help him out if we can. So y'all get on that bid for trip with Cody Mays to help David out.
Wow.
All right. I want to throw this in here too for some comic relief. This is
I-
actually a guy I used to fish a lot of tournaments with, Tim Rhodes. He's very entertaining. Literally, I would fish tournaments with him, even if he could never catch a fish, just to be entertaining. His hot bait is going to be a 2-ounce blue and purple spinnerbait, 13-inch rainbow trout, 4-pound big game with a spinning rod, and big kicker here, top secret. Make sure your spinning rod has at least 2 eyes.
Two missing knives. Two missing knives.
Yeah, it's missing at least 2 eyes. Yeah.
Hey, I got to tell you this now. I'm going to cut this. This is truth. I had this big black gal come on my boat, and I'm not prejudiced. I love all race, but this part of the story is she had not a Zebco 33, but like one of those Zebco 553s or whatever, those big giant catfish things, and she refused to use a bait caster, and she had it looked like she had 180-pound cable line on this thing, and I tie her on an underspin, and I try to cast it, and it doesn't go anywhere. And it's missing an eye with a crimped eye, and I fixed the crimped eye, and I'm thinking, this is going to be a nightmare, and I can't cast it 10 feet. But anyways, funny, true story. I hand that to her, and I'm telling you, if there was a mailbox, and I could tell her put it in that mailbox, hit that stump, that gal with big old butt, and I mean a big old cannon, she'd stand up and go, pow, and fire it right wherever I wanted it. I couldn't throw it 10 feet. So yeah, like 2-ounce black and blue purple on a Snoopy rod with a missing eye and a trout. Go for it. Yeah. You never know, man. It's fishing.
So Tim Rhodes is a guy. He's my old tournament partner, and then this is my old neighbor. He's seconding that bait suggestion. And then we have this from my old neighbor. And he once saw me in a boat with a Guggen and caught a 10-pound bass off a 9-cent Alabama Bandito bug, sponsored by Josh Jones. I don't know what these guys. And then Tim comes back and said he heard it was a cricket on a 7/0 EWG. So these are the people that I call
9 cents. I like the 9 cents. Yes, that was great.
These are the people that I've known for a long time. Jeremiah was my neighbor when I first moved to Van 16 years ago, and that's the people I run with there. So that's what we got to deal with on a daily basis. We got a bid, 500.
There you go.
Joey
Nice.
Bell opening bid, 500. Helping David recover from some serious bad fortune. And this is for a night trip with Cody Mays.
I cannot believe. I'm speechless. I'm without words.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wild.
All right, so that's the current standing bid. Anybody wants to outbid Joey Bell, y'all just drop it in the comments and we'll get it going from there. All right.
Get that all set up for him afterwards. We'll share it on Facebook.
Yeah,
get that out there.
So we've talked about areas now. We've covered that good. We've covered the baits good. Is there any technique tricks that you guys want to share? Like, is there anything special? Mike, I know you mentioned a swim jig. Is there any type of way you're fishing it to make it more effective? I know buzzbait's kind of you just throw it and reel it, so there ain't much with that. But talk to me. Is there something on the swim jig you got?
There is. And so, frog's a frog. Do your thing with your frog. What I can tell you with the frog is let it sit a lot more than you think. Make that frog sit, man. That's one of the biggest tips. So move off the frog. The buzzbait I'm going to keep on the outside edges and stuff and looking parallel to the banks. But with a swim jig for me is a 1-2 punch. I will literally take that swim jig. And I learned this from Greg Hackney, and not directly, but I had a great friend of mine who was a judge and fished, or when they fished fork, and Hackney was burning a swim jig in such a fashion that the weed guard, sticks out of the water like a fin in the movie Jaws, the shark, okay? And that's how fast I'll be running it, because I don't believe fish are going to eat. I just need them to snap at it. I want a reaction bait. When they get tough to catch, reaction baits is your best bet, like a rattle trap things. I can't throw rattle trap in the junk. Can't throw treble hooks in the junk. So that swim jig and on heavy, probably 60 or 70 pound braided line, you won't believe how you can chuck that thing right in the crap, right over the top of pencil reeds. And here's the deal. If I have to teach it, come out with me. But you don't stop reeling. And even as it comes through the bait, it has forward momentum. If it gets in junk and you stop and you shake, it can go forward, backwards, it wraps. You just keep the thing forward. And sometimes, it may load up and lurch from something that it's getting caught on. But if you keep forward momentum all the time, rod tip up high, you won't believe how you can just sit there in little short flips and just burn water. And then again, if I see a bed fish, it's a perfect bait to pitch on a bed. Big heavy hook with a swim jig. It's on heavy braid. It's a 1-2 punch for me. I still feel in this tournament, high water, rain. I've witnessed too many years in this past, and I'm thinking winter, not hourly winter, winter. It's going to be, I think, the frog. I say the winner, when they say, how'd you do it? He's going to say, it was on a frog.
Mine's totally
High
different.
water and a frog.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I want to add something to your deal, Mike. Make sure y'all heard this. Rod tip up high to help keep that swim jig up in the water column. Now, here's what will happen to you. When you're doing that, burning that swim jig, every once in a while, you might get a little stuck in something. This takes a little coordination to do what I'm fixing to tell you. Basically, I got my rod tip up high, boom, boom, boom. I stick. What you don't want to do is go, because you're going to jerk out and ruin your whole cast. So rod tip up high, boom, I stick, point right at it, and just start reeling. And it usually will bulldog through whatever you're in, come right out on the other side. Now lift your rod tip back up and keep going.
That's it. Don't let it fall back.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's aggressive, and sometimes it may be just simply subtle. Like if I throw over a bunch of buckbrush, okay, I just reel it real steady and slow and easy, but never stop. And it just crawls. If I stop, it has a chance to fall, and then it wraps. And, you know, and there's it's a cool deal once you get it and see how to do it. I'm not saying you don't get stuck sometimes, but heavy line swim jig, rip the thing right out of there. So I really love that bait. It's a 1-2 puncher. And then, like Billy said, rod tip up's very important, and twin tails gives you lift. So, you know, Greg talked about that too. The single tail has its time and place on a swim jig. If you're throwing through all this junk, over junk, in the junk, that twin tail gives good lift. So you'll keep it very from rolling over as well. It's just perfect. And again, I'm telling you, man, some of the fish, it's literally, they come out of the water like a dolphin. They don't even have a chance to get it. It's just the 2 strikes I get is either right as it hits the water, the click of the handle, bam, the fish is on. And I on that, I want to teach you, don't let it plunge. So as you're casting, the bait hits the water. If the bait hits the water and then you click, the bait's now plunged. It's got an inch or 2 under. Man, I'm throwing it in 6 inches of water. So no plunge. Engage right as the bait lands, and I'm telling you, fish are right on it. Indoor, they're coming at it so fast that you don't even have to set the hook.
You're kind of doing like you have to go faster because a buzzbait has a blade to keep the bait up. It helps keep the bait lifted, like you're talking about. So you have to go faster. But essentially, it's like when you throw a buzzbait, when it lands, you're trying to get it up as fast as you can. Yes. Similar deal here with the swim jig. When it lands, you're trying to get it up on top and go as soon as it hits the water. So very similar to how you start the retrieve with a buzzbait.
I don't want you to overfish that. Then I don't want you to be rushing it, making it blast off the surface, but you just have to have that nice connection. It lands and swims, lands and swims, and it's important. And the other thing is now this thing's moving so good. You don't need a big hook set. With good hooks, I proved to my clients the other day, I caught 2 fish, and I never even set the hook really. I just, like a swim bait or a chatter bait or a square bill, reeled into it and loaded. And the hooks were so deep, almost popping eyeballs. Where when they set, they got some, but it was outside the mouth. They'd miss fish. So you let them eat it and just reel in and load, and it's over.
Are you using?
I like that. It's the first time. You know what's really cool about this for me, and then I'm done pretty much, and I want to listen and learn something from David because I know I can. I'm simply here giving you guys information about shallow water for the first time in my life. I can't believe it. I feel very proud. I feel confident and strong. I've learned this. So I'm sharing, like we do, the real goods of what hands-on, pain, tears. 4 years ago, I couldn't have told you this. I would have said, shit, I don't know. I'm shallow water, high water. I'm screwed. We're out. We're probably going to hope that something comes to a shell bed. But I'm fishing skinny water.
One more thing from you, Mike. When you're rigging that up, throw that swim jig. Are you going braid, and what size rod?
I'm going definitely braid. I want a fast tip, not so much a reaction rod like cranking rods. A fast tip worming rod that I really has good backbone. So medium heavy to heavy. I like a 15-30 because I'm really looking to take that 10-pounder and literally boat flipper ass in the bottom of my boat. Pardon my friend.
Yeah.
But I want 60, 70-pound braid. I like a 7.3 to 7.6 for this, and that works perfect. And again, very powerful, high-speed 9:1 gear ratio too. Because it's a war. Once this fish is on in that junk, it's got to come out of the junk and at least get to open water, or it doesn't work.
Sounds like
and what color swim jig was that?
Kind of sounds like your frog rod would be a really good rod for this.
Yes, 100%. A frog rod with a fast, absolutely, exactly. A heavy frog rod. Yeah. I like I do like the swim jig that Santone makes. I'm not with Santone anymore, and I'm not with any jig maker at this time. I think Berkeley has.
I'll call you after.
I think Berkeley has some good stuff, and I'm with Berkeley, so I want to talk to them. But I swim jig wise, the main key with this is absolutely have that heavy duty hook. Santone has that heavy duty mustad hook. I'm telling you, the way that I fish this, and even 3 and 4, 5 pounders can straighten the hook if it isn't a heavy duty one, because you're going to war. Sometimes maybe behind some hyacinth or something, and I'm literally bringing in 5 pounds of whatever with that fish. So
it's
got to be that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and sometimes it's even through buckbrush. Maybe the fish gets hooked up. We had one the other day that was through. I had to literally show the client. All right, see, you got the buckbrush here, and I'm talking about you got pencil reeds and then the buckbrush. And I had to take the rod tip and pretend that I'm drawing a circle, and imagine that circle is where the bait has to go through to get through the buckbrush to get to the pocket in the back. And I just fire it through that little hole. Once it's through that hole, we were good and clear. But now we got to bring the fish back through that. So
what colors did you say you were throwing?
When I cover a lot of water, I generally want a natural colors like Alabama craw or one of the brim colors. But I found that the big females eat the white chartreuse really well. So if you're just fishing along white chartreuse for bites, but I like a natural color.
During those days where we had that 50-mile-an-hour wind, it was a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, a week and a half ago. I was on Boat Arc, and we were throwing a chartreuse and white swim jig with a Rage Menace, Magnum Rage Menace on the back. Dude, perfect. In that 100, we had, I ain't even come close to lying to you. We had to wait in between gusts to cast.
Oh my gosh.
All right. And we were in enough air protect where we weren't in big water, but the wind was still almost knocking you down. And we wait, we put up there. We caught 130 bass in 3 days.
Oh my God.
On Boat Arc. And it was like, oh my gosh. Now I went back there last week. We made that same run down that area, caught 14.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Like, to talk about like where'd some of these fish go? Because there are some areas right now I'm going back to and they didn't spawn. There's not fry. There's no male garters and they're gone. It's like, what happened? Where are those fish? And then I side scan the ditch or I side scan the trees or live scope the trees in those areas and they're gone. They didn't even.
Hey, Mike, not to beat it over the head, but that's why it's important for our viewers to subscribe to the Fish Life app because the lake is not the same every year.
No.
I mean, there's some stuff that's the same, but it's not always the same. And that's why it's important to be subscribed to the Fish Life app because you get to see the monthly and weekly updates year over year. And when something changes, you get the heads up on that. It's hard for those guys. Like if you fish Lake Fork a dozen times a year or 20 times a year, 20 days, it's hard for you. Like you're going back to where you caught them last March is where you're starting. And if that's dead, good luck. Like you're going to have to struggle to figure it out for your 1 day or 2 days that month. Something like the Fish Life app just takes care of that stuff for you. So it's important. David, I want to ask you, do you have a technique tip or some type of presentation tactic?
Yes. I can't even believe I'm going to tell y'all this on Billy's show. I just can't.
Come on. Yeah, come on. Give me something good. Give me something good.
I already told you the number one secret was, and this just happened this week, where on one side of the pocket the water was 63, and on the other side it was 70. All right, that not enough people pay any attention to that. But I'll take a fluke with a 5/0 hook, and they make different size split shots, right? So I'll take a split shot, and I've got a heavy crimping pliers in the boat, and I'll take that split shot and put it in the bend of the hook and then smash that thing all the way down in the bend of the hook right by the tail of the bait. Throw that thing in the water and watch what it does, how it falls.
What size split shot?
Well, you can vary that based off the depth of the water and that you're fishing. If you're in 4 and 5 and 6 foot of water, you want a little bit bigger split shot, but it's the way the bait falls and how it moves through the water. If you put a 1/16 tungsten in the front, it's going to go like this. But if you do this all the way to center towards the back, I did a video on this, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and that bait has a tendency to go like this. I learned that I learned that 20 some odd years ago, if not even longer. And I'll give you a statistic on this. That I had a client one day They make a VMC as a hole shot hook that's got the weight of 16th weight. It's almost to the bend. It still wants to fall just a little bit this way. This other one makes it fall even more like this. Anyway, and I had clients, and when what's going to happen, this water's going to come up, and on that bank vegetation, there's going to be a ledge to it. And you throw that thing up there. I was throwing a Cinco with a 16th tungsten in the front. All right. I had a client throwing this hook, all right, on a fluke. He outcaught me 5-1 consistently. The next day, same stat. The next day with the clients, same stats. And I was like, holy smokes, it makes that much difference. And
the fall makes a bite for sure.
Something to play with.
The fall makes the bite. Sure, and if you ever watched them feed them in the Bass Pro tanks and things like that, and watch how those fish react to that falling bait, it's amazing. Well, I used to chum, and when we did charters in Lake Pleasant, Phoenix, Arizona, the striper sometimes would be down 120, 127 feet, and the clients would 1, 2 in the afternoon weren't catching anything no matter what we did, and I would tell them, listen, about 4 o'clock. That chum, you'd throw chum over the side of the boat and you could see it sink on the old traditional 2D sonar. So you'd see it sink 20 feet, 40 feet, 60 feet. Then go right through the fish at 100 feet. And there'd be thousands of fish down in the bottom. Nothing would happen. And then all of a sudden, at whatever 4:20 in the afternoon, the fish would rise from the 127 to the 60-foot lamb. And every single piece of chum that free fell through the water, you'd just watch the lines on the sonar eating them. And it's amazing how the different fall rates that on our rod. So if we would free throw the chum and that piece of chum's falling at this rate, if I put a 1 ounce weight on the people's client, they wouldn't catch the stripers. I had to match what that fall was as close as I could, and that would catch the fish. But
that exact strategy right there is going to come into play this weekend on this tournament, but especially if those fish back out, especially if you happen to get area that you're in and you were pre-fishing on Saturday and you knew what the water temp was, and then on Sunday that temp just dropped. Just keep that in mind. Back out there in that 3 to 6 foot of water, and this
wow.
carries some stout. It carries some stout. Now I would have a wacky Cinco tied on, but I'll also throw this going for those big money fish.
So this comment here.
Yeah.
Doug Stubbs, great dude here. Can't bid on the trip, but got $100 for the cause. I'll get with Doug and get that. Make sure he sends that to
you guys. Listen, I'm not allowed to cry on here.
No.
There's no crying in fishing. Oh, wait, that's baseball. No crying in baseball.
I would have never in baseball or fishing.
No. This is these. I have no words. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
So if y'all are clueless to what's going on, you join later something. So David's had some hardship here lately with a lot of equipment issues, and our boys in a tough spot there. So we're trying to take care of him. Cody is donated a guide trip, so we're auctioning off a guide trip. You can put a bid in the comments, and I'll have Cody follow up with you afterwards. Right now the bid is at $500 for the guide trip with Cody, and Doug Stubbs just donated $100. Big shout out to Doug Stubbs for that. We appreciate it, brother. All right. Let's get back in. Oh, I gotta give a tip, right?
What is your secret?
So I've got two. They're quick ones, and I want to point out when I said in the beginning, like there's nowhere else that you can go and get this information. This is what I'm talking about. You can go watch other fishing report videos for so there's probably a dozen fishing report posts and videos for Lake Fork for this weekend from different guides and different fishermen and whatever. This detail is what you don't get. How to burn that swim jig, how to get the fall rate right based on a hook change. And so here's something else that I've never heard anybody else talk about this, and I've talked about it a bunch over the years. So me and David both talked about throwing the smaller swim baits. This can apply to any weedless swim bait you want to throw. This tip was taught to me by Andrew Grills, who's a fantastic Lake Fork guide, and just one of the best dudes I've ever been around for understanding big fish behavior. And the guy that started me guiding. So big, appreciate that, obviously. Goes without saying. But when you fish a weedless swim bait, point the rod right down the line. Make the line come straight out of the rod tip. So if this is my rod eye, I want my line here and my swim bait's right out there. I don't want to have my rod pointed down like this where the eye of the rod's like this and my line's coming out this way. If the line's coming out this way, what happens is when that swim bait hits a piece of grass, a piece of brush, whatever, that rod will bend and allow that bait to kind of load on to that cover and actually make the grass wad up on it more or get it hung in the brush. When you put your rod tip where the line comes straight out of your rod, you're pointing right at the swim bait, that swim bait never has the shock absorption of the rod on it. So it applies direct pressure to the bait, and that weedless bait will just bulldog through everything. It won't hang up. It'll just, any grass, anything. You can throw it up on the pasture grass on the bank and point at it and reel, and it comes to you. Like you can throw it in a tree. You can throw it in a tree and point at it and reel, and it comes out of the tree. Like
what's it going to do for the feel though? With your feel, if you're pointing straight
here's what happens. You're on a tight line, so the feel's not an issue. You're winding a swim bait. When they hit a swim bait, y'all know 9 times out of 10, whether it's little or big, they hit a swim bait. There's a good hard thump on it when they hit a swim bait. You're going to feel that. If they knock slack in your line like they sometimes do, you just keep pointed at it and keep reeling. Here's my favorite part about this, David. When I'm pointing my rod at the fish, okay, let me stand up for this. All right. So see if I can find a short rod over here. You know me, I ain't got no little rods, Dave. All right.
Yeah, they're all 9'7" or 12'4".
Can't really see it. I'm holding the rod. I'm pointing the rod straight this way. What can I do from this position right here, David?
Set it straight up.
I can set the hook fantastic.
Right, exactly.
I'm in the perfect position to set the hook. So when I'm like this, I get a bite, boom. If he's not slacking it, I reel the slack, they're still weight, I can set the hook from right there. I don't have to think about it. I don't got to set my feet. I don't got to drop my rod tip and reel up my slack. I don't got my rod down here. I got to pick it up. I just gain slack. Now I got to pick the slack up. None of that comes into play. I'm reeling. Boom, it's tight. Pow, I got him right down. I can set the hook better and faster than I can fishing it any other way. So
that's pretty salty there.
Without a doubt, pointing the rod at the weedless swim bait is the way to fish it 100%.
I teach this stuff at a lot of beginners. In the boat, the positioning, just like a baseball player has a position, a pitcher has a certain positioning that he's going to throw second base. That fishing has it. Now, here's the thing. Some of the best pros on TV break all the rules and everything, and they don't care, and I don't care. They're that good, so what? They get to do what they want. They can do it their way. But it doesn't mean they're doing it the right way. And there's a lot of things unorthodox that some of the very best fishermen do, for example. And again, it doesn't matter because they cash their checks and it's a different world that they're playing. For the norm, for the do it right kind of guy, the guy that's not as good and doesn't fish under those terms, you want to be trying to do it right. You have better hook sets like Billy was just showing you. You don't hurt yourself. I mean, I get a lot of older men who, if they're not in the right position, setting the hook on a big 8-pound bass can hurt them. Yeah. It really can, believe it or not. I had a 10-year-old the other day. I had a 10-year-old boy who had to teach him. His dad had taught him to set the hook, and the rod literally came from one side of the boat all the way to the other side. It was literally like a full-blown hip swing, hip rotation, full-blown bat swing. And I had to teach him, no, it's just what Billy just showed. Cross your shoulders, pow, and positioning. Positioning is huge. Huge.
I had the same exact thing.
So I got one more, and Mike, I'm going to kind of add something to your keeping the swim jig on the surface deal. And you've seen, we have, speaking of pros, we've seen some pros on professional level tournaments do this in the past, and that's kind of where I picked it up a long time ago, and then I used it myself. And this can be for keeping it on the surface, or it can be to slow the swim jig down. So to help you keep the swim jig on the surface, if you're finding you can't reel it fast enough to keep it on the surface or whatever, if you're struggling to keep that bait as high as you want to, shake it. Just shake while you reel. So shake. I
was going to say that.
You'll see the pros do that all the time.
So when you shake it, it keeps the jig higher in the water column. And we'll tell you why you see the pros do it, Dave. They may, even if they don't want it on the surface, what they're wanting to do is to keep the swim jig moving without moving forward as fast. They're trying to slow the retrieve down in skinny water. So if you're in a foot of water, you don't want your swim jig on the bottom.
That's what it does.
You want it somewhere in the water column. And if they shake it, you can actually retrieve it slower and keep it higher. When you shake it, it keeps the bait higher in the water column as you're retrieving it. And especially with the dual flat crawl trailer that Mike's talking about, that style, brother, you're going to get just as good an action when you shake it, if not better, than you are when you reel it. When you reel it, they go like this. When you shake it, they go like this. Like it's the same thing.
And when you're reeling it, you get this steady roll when you do the shake, you get these little surge rolls.
Yeah.
And it's really just adding a momentary pause. Just shaking is just adding a momentary pause. And it's actually looks like you're fishing faster, but you're slowing it down.
Yeah.
So I was going to add that too. Comes through the junk a lot. So it depends on what I'm throwing through. Sometimes you'll get experience with it. That some things you just reel through. Certain types of grass, you almost have to have that tip going tung, 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 tung. And then your weights vary. I generally want I like a 5/16. I get to a 3.
I use 3/8 a lot.
I'm say if I get to a 3/8, and if it's long as it's not plunging too much in your junk, you can go to a 1/2 ounce. If it's windy and you're needing to cast it, you'll find you'll start. If you're bringing here's what I want you to realize. I learned this saying a long time ago. Bass and grass go together, but if you're bringing home grass, you're not catching bass. So your bait needs to stay clean. That's the deal. If you're balling up with your bait and you're bringing home balls of bait, you're bringing home balls of grass, you ain't catching bass. So you're in the junk, you got to maintain cleanness. And sometimes I still want the bait to fall down in pockets. So I may be going through a bunch of junk and then fall in a pocket, pick it up. It's just playing that bait in the skinny water. It's fun. I really learned to enjoy it. I used to be fearful of it, and now I love it. And the explosiveness and the bite, you're in a foot of water, man. When a 6, 7, 8 pounder blows up in that water, you got a big one.
And this is all these little comments we've just been making. These are the type of things you usually are paying a fishing guide to learn. Like there's a lot of what we're sharing right here that we teach our customers all the time. And it's a lot of customers go on guide trips to learn things like this from different guys that have different tricks. And that's man, it's awesome that we're all willing to share. I can't thank you guys enough for believing in and standing for what I set this thing out to be about, helping people catch fish. So we do have an update on the guide trip auction. $550. Pat Underwood is now the leader in the clubhouse at $550 for the Cody Mays guide trip that we're auctioning off. So let's go. Get after it, Pat Underwood. I guess Joey Bell, the bid's on you or anybody else that wants to get in on this deal. Here's an interesting comment from Cedar Creek Freak. The big girls like the shake. That's a good one. I like that one. That might be comment of the night so far. That's a good one. Yeah. All right.
According to what you were saying a while ago, Mike, about the 5/16, and some of the places we're fishing have coontail. Coontail's the worst when you're throwing a swim jig or you're throwing a line because it's so soft. It wraps around the line, around the head. And if somebody is consistent, say I'm having them throw a 5/16 and they're consistently doing it, and I can't get them to get their speed right, I'll lift them up, I'll cut it off, and I'll put a 3/16 on and have them throw that. And so it's trying to match that bait to their skill set. And so we spend a lot of time during the day trying to sharpen their skill sets.
Another thing you can try and teach them to do that I was just doing the other day, and you and I can do it. You and I could have that heavier one and get a little bit of stuff on our bait and give the right crack, on that tip, which has speed. It has where I'm barely even with 1 inch. I get the energy to my bait to crack that grass off there with my 60-pound braid. Well, my clients do it, they'll do twice, but there doesn't have the same, I can't call it speed, velocity to make that happen. They got to learn how to have that snapping, kind of like popping the top water, if you will, but very aggressively, not hard, not sweeping the long rod, but experience is all it is. I can throw it in the junk when I get that coontail on my swim jig. It's 2 quick cracks, pap, pap, and they're downwards, pap, pap, and that stuff cut right off my deal every time.
That's recently happened. Well, I say recent, it's been for a long time, is that how many times have you guys been in a boat and every time you pick up a rod, you catch a fish? And you'll put the rod down for an hour, hour and a half, and you're trying to do something different than them. And this happened this past week a bunch of times where, for example, and you're saying the same thing on that swim jig. And what I'm trying to teach my people, and I watch them, is that they'll throw that thing out there and they'll come back with the stuff wadded up on there. I try to get them to use the tip of the rod as the end of their finger. Use the tip of the rod to feel everything you touch. And here's the thing that they don't do. And they'll watch me and say, how are you doing that? And they'll notice that when I'm reeling those baits, and all of a sudden it's like this one time, and then all of a sudden you'll speed it up like this, and then all of a sudden you slow it back down. And the variation of this, it touches or it wants to bog, and you speed it up a little bit, it clears it, you slow it back down, and you're varying that based off of what it's touching. 100%. And you can't get them to recognize that. That's the
No,
hardest thing.
that's right. That's going to clients, David. You're 100% right, and that's the art of fishing. That's someone saying, "Look at the painting I can paint. Here's the painting tools. You paint it. You can't paint it." And so I agree with you when we come to guiding and stuff. Like when I'm talking about swimming my swim jig in this tournament for this weekend, most of my clients can't do that. They can't do it at all. They can't cast that work that pace. Billy talked about a great deal last Wednesday about bedfish, the pace that you pass through the fish. And the other day, I mean, I made 10 flips in the time the client made 3. And I showed him those 10 flips. Wham, bam, bam. Fish turns and looks at it. The client says, always looking at it. Nah, I get it away from him. And I just get him. And finally, I'll go ahead and give it to him when I know it's right. So it's all that. That's an art. And our clients, a lot of times, are never going to have that. That's why I like what you do sometimes. I really feel like you're so accommodating to every situation where you change to the fluke or you change to the swim, your little mini swim jig that you can swim through anything. Those are simplified baits that you can make sure your people learn how to use, grow, and catch fish. And sometimes, forcing them to go out there and throw a big glide bait or something like that, which I've done, is, they enjoy it. But there's a difference in what you're accomplishing.
Well, that like it just happened this week, where what you said earlier is that, but they don't pay attention to, and I try to make them aware, is that especially when we're fishing in that coontail, they're making this cast. Okay, they got a good cast, but the duration of time between when that bait hit the water and they engage their reel and then starts to pick up the slack and lift, that thing's done sunk down in the grass, and
it's
now they make
over.
cranks and it's already wrapped around the line.
Yeah, it's already over. Yep.
Hitting the water and immediately started. I got him finally tuned into that, to where I said, as soon as that thing touches the water, engage the reel and then start reeling. And, that makes all the difference whether it's going to ball up on it or not. And then you go to using the tip of the rod, like Billy's talking about, point straight at it. And then you feel the grass and then maneuver that bait through the grass. And you want it touching it just like this as it goes through the grass. Is what you want without hanging up.
Yeah, Mike, earlier when you were talking about the snapping to get the grass free, man, I've dealt with that a lot, and it, it's similar, like you said, to a jerk on a topwater or a jerk bait, right? Similar thing.
Jerk bait.
Here's what I've noticed over the years: when those guys are doing that and not freeing it from that grass, or at times they're not getting the jerk bait to work right, they are pulling through the end of their slack. And what I mean by that, Mike, when you snap it, you're snapping and your jerk ends simultaneously with reaching the end of your slack. That's pop. You just pop the end of the slack. These guys, let's say I've got this much slack in there, they're pulling to here and continuing to here. And so that pulls the grass with it. Whereas when you hit it, it's just a snap burst out of it.
That's a great analogy of it. Is kind of like what it takes to, and this probably go a lot of everybody's, to walk a frog. You're cracking that line right at the crest where it has that exactly. And the energy is sent right there only. Oh,
and the only way, brother, the bad part about that is if one of y'all figured it out, let me know. If somebody else figured it out, drop it in the comments. There is no way to teach that person to have the bait awareness and feel to be perfect on the end of that slack, the way that guys have done it for a lot of years have. You can't teach that. It is a feel for the end of your slack.
That's just what we were discussing. Why I said it's an art. It just takes time. That's like it's seasoning. You got to throw it a lot and get the feel for it. Really do. Man, I like that question that I just saw up there, because everything we do, the one that you just put there, everything to that gentleman that made that comment, thank you and whatnot. And I can tell you that everything that we do is so relative to these parts. Whether you're at Hubbard, Lavon, Possum Kingdom, I got people from Oklahoma that call me and tell me they follow me just because the patterns that I'm on here are generally there, very near, South Texas, a lot of the stuff. It's really interesting. So thank you for the comment. And you will find some varies. Now, some lakes are different. Maybe they don't have the wood, or maybe they have different grasses or don't have grasses. So you can have some variations. But man, it's all relative.
Yeah, one thing that I heard a long time ago I think it was Bill Dance, actually, a long, long time ago, because he's talking about, everybody knows he filmed all his shows back in the day in his private lakes. And he was kind of addressing that. And somebody said, listen, a bass is a bass is a bass. If you give him the same exact conditions, everything's exactly the same, he's going to behave the same way. He's an instinctive creature. He can't think about it. He's going to react instinctively to those conditions in the same manner, no matter where he is in the country. Now, when I say the same conditions, I mean the same bait source, the same barometric pressure, the same water color. Like, you're never going to have two identical conditions, usually on two different bodies of water. But you can get a lot of similarities by having a lot of the same conditions, and it can relate. I've had people tell me from Missouri and North Carolina and Florida and everywhere across the country. I've had comments over the years, one here, one there, of, man, I ain't ever gonna fish Lake Fork. I haven't ever fished it. Don't know when or if I ever will. But what you're talking about, I've used it here. Used it here. It really helps.
Yep.
So
and here's a really cool. Here's a great analogy. Okay, right now I do the TIFR report, so we've got 3 inland guides. Myself, Upper Coast. We have Matt Reed, who's down at Falcon in those areas. Those fish are post spawn in Falcon. Yeah. Here we are having our spawn. Even break down part of lake. The south part of the Lake Fork hasn't spawned yet. Go to a power plant lake, Lake Welsh. They spawned last week. The most important variable about all in bass is their temperature and, of course, their species. So you've got native bass, you've got Florida strain bass, and northern strain bass. And if you just know smallmouth bass and some other things, but a bass is a bass. And when I moved to Texas, I'd never, ever fished Lake Fork before. I packed up everything I owned from the West Coast, and I came here basically like going to Vegas and throwing dice. And so many people that knew me, knew my abilities, never second guessed what I was doing. But I got here and I had a lot of people say, "Are you nuts? You've never, how could you just come here and be a guide?" And I never meant to say this in cockiness, but I basically would tell them this: I know bass. And if you want to take a helicopter and a strap and blindfold me, strap my boat and drop me on any body of water anywhere in the world, largemouth bass, aside from navigation of where I'm at, yes, that I got to learn. But the bass, I don't. I'll take a quick study, and I'll know bass, and I'll know water temperatures, and what to do, seasonal patterns, and I'll find fish in no time at all. Anywhere you put me.
Strap you and throw you out of a helicopter?
No, strap my boat. Put a big old strap in my boat. Fly me anywhere. Put my boat anywhere you want where there's bass.
I wanted to fly you and throw you out of the helicopter.
Yeah, we can do that too. But I say the same thing. I say the same thing for you, David. I say the same thing for Billy. I say the same thing for an elite level pro. Once you know bass, like Billy said, a bass is a bass. And that's why they can travel and go so many places and still figuring them out. Not at competition level. Not the best of the best, but you know bass, you know bass.
We were just you got to be on a helicopter.
Mike, you just got to be real careful how you say things around here.
Yeah. Hey, I've never been in a helicopter, and then you'd never get me in one to throw me out. So,
yeah,
that's what I meant. That too. I have no fear, is what I'm saying. I don't worry about the knowledge of bass. I'll figure it. That part I'll figure out very easily. It may take a little bit of time, some blood, sweat, tears. I know their habits. You know, the hardest thing on fork was learning how to navigate this sucker and what I could do, what I couldn't do, eliminate my time of travel. You know, sometimes you're idling all the way back in Birch because you don't know what you're doing. You're idling from the 514 bridge or whatnot. Everything you do, you're limiting your time. But bass or bass, I will leave it at that.
Shout out to Cedar Creek Feet. Appreciate this comment right here. He said this may be the greatest live stream of all time. I'm 99.999% certain that it is not, but we do appreciate that you're enjoying it. That's for
sure. I didn't know which way he was going. When he said 99.9, I was like, he's going to say no whammies, no whammies. And
we're good. We kept it safe tonight. You never know with me, though, Mike. I like to keep you on the edge of your seats.
So, hey, quick, just shout out to the app again. Yes, I did a bunch of homework. Not only am I putting on my waypoints of fish catches, but I still will keep you updated with areas and patterns and things. So there's still fishing information. There's not just the catches. It's going to be big and fat, and I've already got like 6 or 7 more to add to it from just the update that I just did. So we're catching a lot of big fish already this year. And I suspect by the end of the year, there'll be several hundred catches on there.
Remind me, Mike, next time we talk outside of this, and it's not anything in a hurry, but we do need to talk about waypoint management on that for your sake, for you being able to manage it. We've got to have a conversation about that because we're going to end up having you're going to end up having so many waypoints on there from all these fish that we're going to have to start creating a file or something to help keep you organized where you can just
monthly, maybe a monthly file.
Yeah, and we've got a while before that's going to be necessary, but we do need to have that discussion and try to figure out a solution for that if we have to change something on the back end of it or whatever. Billy will jump out of a helicopter if you sit a snake next to him. Absolutely.
Me too.
Without
Me too.
a parachute, dog.
Yeah. I'm right with you there.
For the guys,
I don't even need a parachute. If there's a snake in there, if you get me an helicopter, first off, you're lucky. If there's a snake in there, I don't even need to shoot them out. See you.
Hey, I can tell you one thing. I will not be fishing in the back of No Name Creek for at least a few months because I saw one snake in there the other day. So
no way.
I'm not going back in it.
Dude,
I won't go back in
listen
there.
to this.
There's another. Yeah.
We were at Bodark every day for 3 weeks, and every day we saw at least 30 snakes every day at Bodark. And so there were plenty of them swimming right next to the boat. So that would have been.
These are water moccasin, copperhead, poisonous snakes.
Does it matter?
Water snakes, some moccasins, I mean, they get really close to the boat.
Well, we were in a little cut the other day that had a little mini island, and just a tiny island that was probably like a half size, a pontoon boat size little island with some trees and shit on it. Excuse my French. And we're fishing for this bedfish, and my client goes, "Hey, look!" And there's 2 giant water moccasin, freaky looking things on this tree. Big, that big around, and they're like 5 feet in the back of the boat, and I'm just sitting there chewing on it. Like, I don't know what to do. I got to get out of here. I can't tell my clients we have to pull off this bedfish, but we're going to pull off of this bedfish. I can't handle it. And I'm chewing on it. I'm like, I don't know what to say. And then one of the snakes goes and opens its mouth, and it's like, "We're out of here." I hit the power poles and then trolling motor. The guy's like, hey, the fish. I went, "Look, I don't care, man. We're done." And I saw that thing open its mouth, and ugh.
Yeah, I saw the first snake I seen was in the back of Long Branch the other day. And I mean, I'm on the troll motor, and I got a board underneath it to where I can turn the troll motor. That's the only way I can operate it. This snake swam right in front of the troll motor. I went, "Hey guys, look, that's the first snake I've seen so far on Fork." I mean, just mosey on down
the water snake, no big deal, but not those poisonous ones, man.
Yeah. Dog, I'm gonna tell you right now. If you ask me what type of snake that was I saw in the back of No Name today, I have no idea. I never look at them long enough to figure it out. As soon as I see one, I'm hauling ass.
Can you imagine, Mike, if we'd have thrown him in the water with that snake?
I guarantee you would. Hey, I promise you couldn't. You can't. If you go acting like you're putting me in the water and the snake's around, I'm going to get so low and flat on the ground, you'll never move.
You got to be able to pick up 250 pounds.
Hey, no, seriously, that guy, we saw that snake, and the guy was like, the customer saw it first. He said, "Oh, look, a snake." And I was like, "Dude, we're out of here." He's like, "What? You know what?" I'm like, "No, I don't like snakes." He's like, "Oh, man, I used to like catch snakes when I was a kid. Take me over there. I'll grab it." He goes, "I'm a snake wrangler." I said, "Not today, you're not, buddy.
Not today. Not today."
We're out. We were over. I had a guy trip at Bob Sandlin last Friday, and they have some of that same weed we have here that's off the bank. And it's matted, real thick. It's got the viney stuff. And I had the guy rigged up, and I had him punching the stuff in about 2 foot of water. And we're going down the deal, and he's punching. I'm running the troll motor, and I'm looking up ahead of me. I didn't say nothing. I kept on going. These guys, they're just punching that stuff. We got literally 8 feet from about a 6 foot gator that was sitting on that stuff and did not move. And these guys didn't even see it till they got right next to it. And I swear they were going to jump out the back of the boat. I mean, it's like, "No, don't do that. He's all right. He ain't even," and that gator never moved, and literally 6 feet from him.
Man, I'm sure you guys are probably getting. We need to probably wrap this thing up here. It's been going for a pretty good while now, but I got a couple things I want to get done before we wrap this up. One is I want to make sure that this comment from Cody Mays gets shown. It's for Ozio. Did y'all know that David was a passenger on the Wright brothers' first plane flight? David's nickname for us is David Oldzio. So.
Yeah, Cody Mays. Yeah, listen. 30 years of being on that tour, I learned to take it and I learned to dish it out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know you will.
Your time's coming, Cody Mays. Your time's coming.
I like Cody, man. I ran into him at the dock the other day, and he's just a nice guy. He's all around nice guy. Enjoy him.
All right, we all got to do the Trump dance. The Trump dance is tradition. Everybody do the Trump dance. Mike, do the Trump dance.
I got it going.
Then we got this.
Come on, Mr. Trump.
We need a dance off. So,
oh God, no.
Your best dance move, and we'll wrap it up on that. What's your best dance move, David?
I don't dance. I do not dance. I
just give him a little more. This is what my dad would do. My daddy would just put his hand up and kind of give you like, all right, we're doing all right.
That's the old Geo walk right there. That's
the worst moonwalker there is.
I'm going to give y'all one better. Y'all remember the sprinkler? There it is.
The sprinkler.
Drop it in the comments who wanted to dance off. There's the dance off. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to let you guys get out of here. It's getting late, man. Great live stream tonight. Great information shared. We certainly hope for the viewers that it helps you guys. Y'all got any parting shots before we go?
To everyone that could donate to this cause, listen, praise the Lord. I am eternally thankful to you guys. I mean, I had a young man come in here. Let me see, Greg Russell. He took one of the packages, the 3-trip packages, and many thanks to you guys. I mean, this is going to be an ordeal. That
you booked one of your 3-trip deals while we were live.
Yep.
Great. That's outstanding, man. Good deal.
Awesome. Yep. Yes, sir. Yep.
So, I mean, I can't be more appreciative. This is going to be a monumental deal that I'll remember for a long time. Wow. So
it ain't no big deal, brother. It's just what we do. We take care of ourselves, take care of our brothers around here, man. Hey, we all about loving our fellow man and helping each other catch more and bigger fish. Mike, you got anything before we go?
I don't. There'll be more hopefully for you, David. If there's anything that comes, like if we're creating a Facebook deal for that to put it out there, let me know, because I'll share it to all my stuff too and see what I can do to help.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Maze kind of take the lead on that since it was his deal. I'm gonna get with him and see if he knows the gentleman from the comments tonight to get with him for the 550. Let me refresh. Does anybody remember what his name was that bid 550? Pat Underwood. Pat Underwood, viewer of the night for the highest bid on the guide trip for Cody Mays. Shout out to Doug Stubbs, Joey Bell, who also Doug's donating 100. So I'm going to get Cody to get in touch with Pat Underwood and Douglas Stubbs, and we'll get all that taken care of for the donated guide trip and the 100 donation from Doug. So, man, thank you guys, the viewers. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate you guys taking your time to watch this tonight. It means a lot to us. We certainly hope we helped you. We'll be right back here next Wednesday for another edition of Guides Night. And we'll see you next time. Y'all know where it'll be at. David, where's it going to be?
It's going to be right here at your Lake Fork Guide.
That's it. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good night.
See ya.